That's on the schedule for tomorrow night, right? Read the book.
Oh, you bought materials for everybody. That's a great idea. Okay, if we could get started. Chief Plaga.
Chief Plaga.
Thank you.
It's 6 o'clock, Chief Plaga. We were planning to get started. Good evening and welcome to the December 13, 2022 regular meeting of the Township Board for the Charter Township of Meridian. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Mr. Lemaster, could we have a roll call?
Supervisor Jackson.
Here.
Clerk Guthrie.
Here.
Treasurer DeShane. Here. Trustee Hendrickson. Trustee Sundlin. Trustee Wilson.
Here.
Trustee Wazinski.
Here.
All present.
On our agenda tonight, item 4 is presentations, the first of which is a presentation by Chief Plaga for our police department and myself to the 242 Community Church.
Church has what they call the Big Give. And we were fortunate enough at the police department to be the recipients of the Big Give this year. What's the Big Give, you ask? It is nearly 100 volunteers coming into our police department and painting our entire upstairs common areas. The building was in pretty bad disrepair and in dire need of paint. It's the only paint it's ever seen is 1992. So the pastor came in and we kind of walked through, and it was an amazing army of volunteers that came in through the day. And then while they were there, they noticed that the refrigerator also looked to be original. And on the Friday after they painted, the church had a new refrigerator for our break room delivered. So we've been a recipient of a lot of kindness and a lot of volunteerism, and it is not gone unnoticed by us.
Thank you. And so, Pastor Chad Cronin, if you'll join us, I would like to, as a representative of the Township Board and the residents of Meridian Township, join with the police department in thanking you very much, you and your congregation very much for your contributions and service to our Township Police Department. And if you'd like to say a few words before Chief Plaga and I offer you a token of our appreciation, please do so.
Yeah, no, I'd love to. Yeah, on behalf of 242 Community Church, we love being neighborly. We love being a part of this community, and we love serving our community with no strings attached. We want the community to know we are here for them. And so Big Give is something we do each year. There's a few times a year we try to get our whole church serving on the same day at the same time in some way. And in years past, we've helped with Haiti after hurricanes. We've packed meals a few times. We've done things with our local schools. We love being a part of Celebrate Meridian every summer and love sending a small army to help with that as well. But yeah, we're excited this year to reach out to the township and just say, hey, how can we help and be a blessing to the township we're part of. And we were excited when Chief Plaga had this idea of what we could do, and it was right up our alley. I didn't know if we could accomplish it in one day, but we did have several people show up. We actually had to send home the last crew because there was no more work to do. So yeah, we're excited to be a part of it and look forward to helping in future needs in any way that we can. So thank you for allowing us to serve.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chief Blogger? This is a plaque and token of our appreciation where the Meridian Township Police Department presents to 242 Community Church this token of our sincere appreciation to your congregation for volunteering to paint the interior of the Public Safety Building for the Big Give Project. We honor and thank you for your commitment to our and loyalty to our community.
That's great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Item 4B on our agenda is the introduction of new full-time firefighter and paramedics by Chief Hamill from the Fire Department.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor, Board. So we were lucky to find Andrew this past fall. He's been with us now part-time, getting acclimated to what we do. So we did our orientation over about 2 months. So in a week, when Mark Roman retires, he's going to hit the ground running and start shift, and no third rides or anything. But Andrew comes to us from the Brighton Pinckney area, and he has been a paramedic firefighter for about 15 years and very experienced. He's got a bachelor's degree that is around medicine and public safety, so we look forward to a lot of really good things in the future from him. Maybe he'll take over for me someday when I leave, someday. But we're really excited to have him. He's hit the ground running and then just been a breath of fresh air, and really has opened up a lot of people's eyes with his experience and knowledge, and the troops have just enjoyed him being here over the last month and a half, 2 months. So I will let Andrew say his hellos and go from there.
Hello, everybody. It's nice to meet you. And I just wanted to take a second to thank you all for the opportunity to not only serve the citizens that reside here, but all the visitors, hopefully for many more years to come. So thank you very much for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Yes. Before you do come, before you do come, Andrew, would you give us your last name?
Oh, sure. It's Zaleski.
Zaleski.
Yep.
Very nice to meet you.
Thank you so much.
Welcome, Andrew.
Thank you so much.
Hi, welcome.
Thank you so much.
Congrats and welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. For item 4C, Chief Plaga gets to introduce 5 new police officers.
I'm not sure who's more excited, me or them. Madam Supervisor, board members, I'm very fortunate to be able to introduce 5 exceptional young people who've just completed the police academy and were sworn in on Monday afternoon and have spent the last 20 hours in the last two days reading policies, writing notes, and getting prepared to hit the road where the manager believes they belong already. First, I'd like to introduce Danny Mora. Danny comes to us from Los Angeles, California. He's a Culver City High School graduate and a California State University graduate. He holds a bachelor's degree and is currently in the U.S. Army Reserves. Danny.
Hello, everyone. Just want to go ahead and say thank you for the continued support. You guys gave me a chance, and I really do appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Shake hands afterwards. Next, Jacob Gonzalez, Jacob's hometown. He's a hometown guy, Okemos, Michigan, Okemos High School graduate. Holds a bachelor's degree from Ferris State University in criminal justice. We're very fortunate to have Jacob. Jacob spent a little time with us as a cadet. He does have ties to this community, a little bit of family ties maybe. You may be familiar with the name. His dad works for the other department in public safety. So we're very fortunate to have Jacob here, and we're glad he chose the right side. So Jacob?
I'm Jacob Gonzalez, like Chief mentioned. I've lived in Okemos for a long time. It's been over 20 years now, and I'm very thankful to have the opportunity to be up here. And I look forward to serving the community and the hometown that I grew up in. So thank you.
Thank you.
Natalie. Next, we have Natalie Tyndall. Natalie's from Brooklyn, Michigan. She went to Columbia Central High School. She's a Michigan State University graduate and holds a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. The interesting story about Natalie, she was recruited by Officer Chrissy Scatia. Many of you know Chrissy was Officer of the Year last year, and this is one of the reasons. Natalie was involved in an incident. She was a witness, gave very pertinent information, was very detailed. And Officer Scatia came to our office and said, hey, listen, this is somebody we have to grab. Natalie has been a cadet for almost 2 years and went through the police academy. Natalie.
Hi, I just want to say thank you for this opportunity, and I'm very excited to get started and helping out the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brent. This is Brent Spence. Brent comes to us from Garden City. He's a Garden City high school graduate. He also went to the police academy at Lansing Community College. Another one that found the right side of public safety. Brent's got his firefighter 1 and firefighter 2 he achieved, but decided that law enforcement was more his style. Brent also served 6 years in the Army National Guard, and we're fortunate to have Brent. He worked with Officer Blaine Anderson, our canine handler. That's kind of the marketing that we had done with Blaine. So Brent.
My name's Brent Spence. I just want to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to serve the community. I'm hoping to make a change for the better, and the way the policing is going, I feel like I'll fit right in, and I just want to say thank you.
Brent's getting married on Saturday. Sarah. And last but not least, Sarah Hubbard. Sarah comes to us from Macomb, Michigan. She has a bachelor's degree from Michigan State University in criminal justice. She's also been a cadet for us, and we identified Sarah as a wonderful candidate for law enforcement. She graduated the police academy along with the other 4 here last week. So Sarah Hubbard.
Hi, my name's Sarah Hubbard. I just wanted to say thank you for this opportunity, and I look forward to starting my career here at Meridian Township. Thank you.
Thank you. We would. Welcome, Daddy.
Welcome.
Jacob, welcome to Meridian Township. Natalie, good to see you again.
Good thing it's a morning wedding.
Brett, welcome. And Sarah, congratulations.
Welcome again.
Thank you all for coming tonight, and I think this is a great way to start 2023.
Yeah.
We come to item 5 on our agenda. Citizens address agenda items and non-agenda items. I don't have any green cards. If there are members of the audience tonight who would like to speak to the board, now is the time. Seeing none, then we'll move on to item 6, Township Manager's Report. Mr. Walsh.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor and members of the board. Just a few notes of interest here as we close out 2022. As you know, about a year and a half ago, we had about 13 or 14 vacancies on our staff. We're now down to 2. We have 2 openings out of 165 employees. We're about 98% full. We're very proud of that. The sign project, going forward, you should start to see some momentum on that in January, completion in February, and that's among other things, the 4 entry signs. One down by close to Lucky's, be a good description of it. On the west side, close to IHOP. And then the northern sign is where it's located right now. And then the sign on the eastern location will be somewhere around Ted Blackwoods. Will be that sign. That's just been a lot of work and effort by Assistant Manager Opsimer and Director Massey. I can tell you, funding is not the hard part. Ordering the signs is not the hard part. Even coming up with a design, it was finding the locations to put them and getting the approvals from individual property owners was the challenge there. Supervisor Jackson and I have been invited to meet with interim President Woodruff at MSU. That'll occur in the second week in January. We're continuing our work with the mall group. There's a group of mall communities led by Manager Pat McGinnis, who's the manager of Portage, formerly of Grand Haven. He is leading a group of managers across the state who have malls. What can we do? What are we doing? How do we become more successful? Director Amber Clark is working with that group and an important member of that group. We will be closed on Friday beginning at 12 o'clock so we can have a holiday appreciation party with, we have over 100 of our team members signed up to attend that. The Okemos Road Bridge, give them credit. I'll tell you, we may be delayed a few weeks, but boy, they're out there every day, and that's tough work. And I appreciate all the people who are out there, the men and women, to complete that project. It looks like in January, I can't give you a specific date, but in January, if you think about it, it was supposed to be done by Thanksgiving, had a delay at the beginning. Finishing up in January on that kind of project is pretty awesome. Grand River and Okemos, could be tomorrow, could be Thursday, maybe Friday, but Grand River and Okemos will reopen. There's a few minor glitches to get that intersection open. And all of that here in the next 7 to 10 days, all of Grand River should be reopening. I want to give a special acknowledgement to Chief Plaga for his work and his team. There have been some days that have been really difficult. I appreciate Marna, Trustee Wilson, who's helping us communicate the challenges of putting thousands of cars, when that bridge is closed, through a neighborhood that doesn't have sidewalks and is narrow and is not built for that. And people still like to get out and walk. Chief's team was out there trying to direct as the bridge was closed, unbeknownst to us last week. We're trying to handle all those things as best we can. The DEI work, you may not have heard a lot about that, but we continue to make progress. The committee met on Friday, and we're actually, our next meeting in January, we'll be putting together an action plan. We're bringing all of our ideas. We're not the focus right now is not developing a 25 or 30 page document for people to try to read the first couple pages of and try to get through. We're trying to come up with a 1 or 2 page action plan about what the township is doing and wants to do and put that all together. And just a reminder that Supervisor Jackson, Clerk Guthrie, and Trustee Wazinski from the board serve on that committee along with a number of directors. So we're making really good progress. The police assessment, we've talked about that. That process is complete. And we'll hear something in the coming weeks, and hopefully we're recertified, and appreciate the time that all of us put into that. I know they interviewed Supervisor Jackson and myself late last week. Speaking of the police department, appreciate your support on the police and fire wage issue as we try to embark down that road. We haven't started. It'll probably start sometime in January, but we'll try to sit down and discuss with them where things are going to go and how we can work together on that issue. And finally, as you recall, we met with the Okemos Board of Education maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago. A similar meeting is being scheduled with the Hazlet Public School Board, and that will occur in January. And speaking of that, if you don't mind, Madam Supervisor, we may take a pause for a moment and think about Robin Lewis, who was just elected to the Hazlet School Board and of course serves on the CATA board. And if you don't mind, if we could take a minute, she passed away today, and if we could take a minute and just pause and remember her service to the community. Thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Item 7 on our agenda is board member reports of activities and announcements. Treasurer DeShane.
Thank you. Just briefly, I want to thank Manager Walsh, Chiefs Hamlin, and Blaga for your outstanding work to bring us to nearly 100% full staffing on our police and fire departments. I mean, it is the service that our residents value above all others by a wide margin, and it's been a real challenge, we know, to keep full staffing, and you've managed to do it in this very tough environment. So great work on that regard. Wonderful to meet 6 new public safety officers tonight. Also wanted to follow up with the manager's comment about Robin Lewis, served with her on the CATA board. And Robin was a fresh voice on there, lots of energy and a new perspective. We appointed her about 2 years ago for a 4-year term, and we're going to miss her on the CATA board. We're going to miss her in the community, and it's a real loss to her family and all of us that knew her. Thank you.
Trustee Sunderland.
I did meet with the Transportation Commission recently, and gosh, we hadn't met since September. Our director of the Transportation Commission put in his resignation, so I'm not sure where that's going to go, but it was a very productive meeting.
Thank you. Anyone else? Trustee Wazinski.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. Just wanted to note some of the Environmental Commission efforts. Now that we're coming to an end, of course, all the commissions are starting to look towards 2023. And so Environmental Commission has been spending a lot of time on our climate sustainability plan, and they're working in conjunction with our master plan. Senior planner Brian Shorkey was there to answer questions for us and to give a description, so that was really helpful. I have a meeting with Groundwater Management Board tomorrow. They've been doing a lot of work around water quality data templates. So what it is, tri-county collaboration of groundwater sampling and results, and putting it together so that we have a more complete set of water data for the area. I think that concludes my announcements.
Thank you. Anyone else? Then we'll move on to item 8, which is approval of the agenda.
Move to approve the agenda.
Support.
Thank you.
I don't want to start.
No.
Every time.
But I didn't get to call. We have a motion to approve from Trustee Wilson, support from Treasurer DeShane. All in favor of the motion, please say yes.
Yes.
Chair votes yes, opposed no. And the agenda is approved by unanimously. Item 9 on our agenda is the consent agenda, which includes typical communications, minutes of our December 6, 2021 regular meeting, and the manager's bills. Trustee Hendrickson.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. I move the consent agenda as presented with one amendment to the meeting minutes from the December 6th meeting. On page 12 of those minutes, there were several references to combining items 13C, D, and E, when in fact it was items 13C, D, and F. So if we could make that change, I will move the consent agenda as amended thusly.
All right.
Support.
The motion to approve, supported by Clerk Guthrie. Mr. Lemaster, could we have a roll call vote?
Supervisor Supervisor Jackson,
Yes.
Clerk Guthrie,
Yes.
Treasurer DeShane,
Yes.
Trustee Hendrickson,
Yes.
Trustee Sundlin,
Yes.
Trustee Wilson,
Yes.
Trustee Wazinski.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
Thank you. Item 10 is questions for the attorney. We have none this evening. And 11 is a public hearing. We have for item A 1673, Hazlet Road Brownfield Plan Amendment. Mr. Schmidt will introduce our subject.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. So briefly, what we're talking about is the brownfield plan for this property, outlined in yellow on the screens. This is part of the former Hazlet Village Square Shopping Center located. This is Marsh Road on the right-hand side, Hazlet Road on the top. So this is the far western edge of the shopping center. As you're very well aware, the building has been demolished and construction is occurring. The original brownfield plan for this site included the demolition of this building and the white roofed building, the grocery store as well. As everyone is well aware, this project, the Hazlet Village Square redevelopment, has gotten legs, and there's a separate brownfield plan that covers all of those. So this amendment functionally does two things. It takes out that piece of the project, and it updates all the costs and tax increment revenues for what we now know to be the cost for the project. So $33 million of investment, just over $1.2 million of total reimbursable expenses, with 1.1 and change going to the developer. The big change there are two really big changes that come about as a result of this. One, the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority did recommend re-including interest into this project at a 5% rate, which is consistent with every other project that has been reviewed and is part of the MEDC's policy. Two, given that we now know that it's roughly $33 million in value in the end, the payback period goes from 15 years down to 4 years because we've reduced the amount of eligible expenses substantially by taking out the other demo, and we have increased the value that was projected within the project. Be happy to answer any questions that the board may have at the appropriate time. We do have this on for discussion later in the evening, and be happy to talk at that time.
Okay, since this is a public hearing, I believe we will open the public hearing at 6:26. And now open the floor to public comment on the revised brownfield plan amendment for this project. Are the members of the public, again, I don't have any green cards, are the members of the public who would like to speak to this issue? So we will close the public hearing at 6:27, seeing no response, and move on to item 12A on our agenda, which is SUP 22-091, Grand Reserve. This is a project which involves a buildings greater than 25,000 square feet. So it requires a special use permit.
Yes, ma'am. Madam Supervisor and members of the board, you did review this at your last meeting. There was a fair bit of discussion. The main piece of discussion was with respect to Powell Road. And after going back and forth between the road department and the developer and our plans, it's abundantly clear that the number is 730 feet, and we'll figure out exactly where that starts and stops once we get to site plan like we normally would. Outside of that, there are really no remaining issues. All the conditions of the rezoning have been met and will remain in effect, and the project will be built roughly in conformance with the design that was previously shown to you. They do still need to receive a variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals for the wetland buffer and/or redesign the plans to avoid that wetland buffer impact. The ZBA will be hearing that case next week, as the ZBA is the last Board of Commission that meets for the year.
Okay.
Be happy to answer any questions.
Since this is an action item, we need to have a motion on the table. Mr. DeShane?
I move to adopt the resolution approving a request from Newman Equities LLC to build 86 structures totaling more than 25,000 square feet on the properties between Central Park Drive and Powell Road. The property is zoned RD, multiple family residential, and is subject to a conditional rezoning agreement.
Support.
Supported by trustee Wazinski. Mr. DeShane?
Yeah, we talked about this last week extensively. I'm glad to see the developer owners are here as well. I like this project for 3 reasons. It's less dense than before. There's 60% plus of green space. And as I believe I pointed out last time, it's really as close to infill development as we're going to get. A lot of these homes will be walkable to the commercial area close by, requiring less use of an automobile. For those reasons, and the excellent history that DTN has in developing such communities, I'll gladly support this motion.
Trustee Wazinski?
I think Treasurer Sweeney said it very well. I would just add that I really appreciate the time and effort that went into this with the board's input. So, thank you.
Mr. Schmidt, is there a reason you have a frown?
No, I was just quickly looking to see if I could find the Zoom to zoom out. Still learning the system.
I thought that might have been something we had overlooked.
No, just still learning the system here.
Trustee Hendrickson?
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. I do have one question, which is if the ZBA were to deny the variance request, and they would have to go back to the drawing board on the wetland buffer
Thanks, Dan.
encroachment, would that end up coming back this way, or would they be able, assuming they were able to get around it somehow, would they be able to just construct as is?
So I think it's really dependent upon what the solution is. I mean, if the solution is we're able to, I'm trying to even think what a solution would be around this. You know, if it requires a substantial redesign, you back. If it's as simple as we need to curve the road in such a way that and we're able to acquire a little additional property, it's probably just an administrative function at that point.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay. Trustee Wilson?
I just have one comment that was not in the memo, and that is that we need to resolve the fire marshal's concern in stating in October 5th memo that there should be no street parking whatsoever in this development. So I just want that to be on the table as another concern that needs to be addressed at the site plan review.
Absolutely, that's something that we will take up at site plan.
Thank you.
One question, it was not a part of the conditional, those were conditions for rezoning, correct?
The original conditions of rezoning.
So that wouldn't have included the issue?
It would not have included, and it's not necessary to include it here because it's still something that we need to work out once we get into the nuts and bolts.
Okay. Other comments, questions? Then we have a motion to adopt the resolution approving the requests to build 86 structures totaling more than 25,000 square feet. Mr. Lemaster, we would need a roll call vote.
Clerk Guthrie?
Yes.
Treasurer DeShane?
Yes.
Trustee Hendrickson?
Yes.
Trustee Sundlin?
Yes.
Trustee Wilson?
Yes.
Trustee Wazinski?
Yes.
Supervisor Jackson?
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Thank you very much.
Item 12C has to do with the American Rescue Plan funding that I believe Mr. Walsh.
It's B, actually.
Oh, B.
We're on B.
Well, I'm sorry. The Capital Projects Fund is item 12D, and that will be Mr. Walsh, unless he has left the room and designated someone else.
my apologies. I'm out of the room for personal reasons. Up next, what's next on the, is it the pension? Capital Projects Fund. Yeah, so this is something the board has discussed now. This is the third meeting that we've discussed this. And this is the creation of a fund that's born out of our general fund that we have. Our general fund balance, as you're going to hear in a little bit from Director Garber, is expected to be $12.5 to $12.7 million at the end of '23. It's higher than that right now because the $1.25 million that's set aside for the Okemos project wasn't expended this year. So that's carried over in the fund balance. That's why it's higher right now than it will be. We're forecasting, of course, that money be expended in 2023, which would reduce the fund balance down to about 12.7. You'll hear that in a little bit. We're using a target of about 12.5 just to be conservative. So out of that 12.5, we're asking that you set aside, effective January 1st, $3.5 million out of that $12.5 million for a capital projects fund. And in addition, the approval of two projects that would come out of there. One being the improvements to the building, massive improvements to our building, which would include carpet and painting of the walls and office furniture and other upgrades. And then, of course, the improvements to the police department with a new access control system for safety feature. That would total $1.2 million. That's part of this motion, is the approval of those expenses and the $3.5 million capital project fund. So that's the first request that's before you this evening.
All right. Trustee Wazinski.
I'll move to approve the creation of the Meridian Township Capital Projects Fund effective 1/1/2023 in the amount of $3,750,000 and appropriating $1.2 million as outlined in the December 9th, 2022 memorandum.
Yeah, my apologies. There's a new.
Oh, I'm sorry. You told me that.
The only change would be is the number would be 3.5 million.
I can reread it.
Okay, please.
Move to approve the creation of the Meridian Township Capital Projects Fund effective 1/1/2023 in the amount of $3.5 million and appropriating $1.2 million as outlined in the December 9, 2022 memorandum.
Support.
Supported by Clerk Guthrie. Trustee Wazinski.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. We had some discussion around this and ARPA funds, and I really like this idea. I think it's important that we have an individual line item for this type of work. I think it's easier to track fund balance and also easier to plan for future projects. So I think this is a great idea.
Clerk Guthrie.
I concur with Trustee Wazinski. Much needed. I appreciate this memo. I was a little confused at the last meeting, and I feel like this lessened my confusion how it's written. So, and that it's that it says that it will be done annually. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate the effort that's going in here. And I look forward to the upgrades for the staff in this building and other buildings in the township.
Okay, other comments? Treasurer DeShane.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. I intend to support this. I hope we can do this, these both for $1.2 million, and leaves us a healthy balance of $2.3 million left. However, this is a 50-year-old building. Once we start ripping out carpet and painting and looking at office furniture, this inflationary environment, I fear we might go over it, and I'm glad we've got some headspace in case we need to go over it. I think the last thing we want to do is make this major capital investment and take the cheapest products available to meet the goal, yet they need to be replaced much sooner than we would hope them to be. So we want to make sure we do this the right way, not just do it. And here's to hoping that we can do it for $1.2 million. Thank you.
Board members? All right, the motion is to approve the creation of a capital projects fund effective 1/1/23 and appropriating $1.2 million as outlined in our December 9 memorandum. Mr. Lemaster, could we have a roll call vote?
Treasurer DeShane,
Yes.
Trustee Hendrickson,
Yes.
Trustee Sundlin,
Yes.
Trustee Wilson,
Yes.
Trustee Wazinski,
Yes.
Supervisor Jackson,
Yes.
Clerk Guthrie.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
We move down to item 12C, American Rescue Plan funding. Mr. Walsh.
Thank you. Again, this is something that's been discussed. This is probably our 6th or 7th discussion about the ARP funding. You have a list of projects before you that have been vetted by the board. This is the 3rd discussion on this particular second round of, I won't go through the whole, we had $4.5 million, there's $2 million left in the appropriation before you tonight is $1.9 million. Everything from locker rooms at the police department to windscreens to improvements to the historical village and local roads getting a big chunk of it. So I know we've been through this a number of times. You've had a lot of discussions about it, but that's our recommended list after listening to all of the board's concerns. Affordable housing is in there, the senior center, those sort of things. / community center.
Trustee Hendrickson.
I move to approve the appropriation of $1,988,000 in the American Rescue Plan funds as outlined in the Township Manager's memo. As indicated, ARP fund is not, if the ARP fund does not disperse by June 30th, 2025, it shall automatically roll over to fund Meridian Township local roads.
Support.
Supported by Trustee Wazinski. Mr. Hendrickson.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. I think that the manager has laid out well what it is that we are appropriating this money for. I know that we have expressed over the course of several meetings that we want this money to be going toward uses and functions that we believe will impact all residents of Meridian Township. And I believe that the allocations shown here reflect that. We are continuing to underscore that we will meet our promises when it comes to the local road program by allocating another $700,000 to that. Thousands of our residents use, view, and visit the Meridian Historical Village every year, and we'll be shoring those up as well. In addition to adding the windscreens at the marketplace, which I know we also have thousands of folks who come to that over the course of the year. And so I think that these projects that have been discussed are excellent ways to spend this one-time money that we got from the federal government. And I do want to make one suggestion. I made the motion as presented so we could start the discussion about it, but by my calculation, we have $18,509 remaining to be allocated after this. If it's the pleasure of the board this evening, I would suggest that we increase the senior and community center feasibility number from 500,000 to 518,509. Rolling over $18,000 into local roads 3 years from now is a drop in the bucket. And I think that we can close this issue from our perspective by allocating the remaining $18,000 tonight. And I would be happy to talk about that further or hear your thoughts on that.
All right, so you're offering that as an amendment?
I'm offering that as a possibility for someone else to make that motion to amend my motion.
Okay.
I'm sorry, what you could do, just if you want to make it easier, is just, you could just have a motion to allocate the 18,000 to that, have a vote on that, and then go back to your original motion.
Okay, okay.
If it makes it easier.
Then that assumes that Mr. Henderson has made that motion.
So I will make that motion, that we allocate $18,509 in American Rescue Plan funds to the senior and community center feasibility line item that will be discussed, that will be allocating another $500,000 to later.
All right, and we need a second.
Support.
supported by trustee Wilson. Any further discussions on that? Then we need a roll call vote for that motion.
Supervisor Jackson,
Yes.
Clerk Guthrie,
Yes.
Treasurer DeShane,
Yes.
Trustee Hendrickson,
Yes.
Trustee Sundlin,
Yes.
Trustee Wilson,
Yes.
Trustee Wazinski.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
Thank you. Now we go back to your original motion, which was seconded, I believe, by trustee Wazinski. Is there further discussion? Mr. DeShane.
I have a question for the board on these two funds, and since we're on this, actually, no, I'll wait, this discussion can wait for the pension stabilization fund discussion that coming up next, so no comment from me, aside from the fact I intend to support this motion.
Okay, so at this point, we're addressing the American Rescue Plan funding. We have amended the original motion.
Actually, no, we haven't.
We didn't.
No.
No, we okay.
It seemed like we were going to, but we didn't.
That's, you're exactly right. Okay, so now we are concerned with the original motion. We have, are there any further comments on the original motion? Trustee, Clerk Guthrie.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. I just wanted to thank the team for a well-rounded allocation of these funds for submitting this. It is very community-oriented and focused, and I'm just appreciative of the team and Manager Walsh for putting this together before the board for us to decide on tonight.
Okay. Trustee Wazinski.
It's already been said, but I also want to thank the management team for bringing these issues or needs to the board. I do think it's very well-rounded. I do think it's public-facing, and I'm happy to support.
Any further comments, discussion? Mr. Lemaster, the motion is to, where am I? To approve the appropriation of $1.988 million in American Rescue Plan funds as outlined by the manager. It has been approved and seconded. Mr. Lemaster, can we have a roll call vote?
Trustee Hendrickson,
Yes.
Trustee Sundlin,
Yes.
Trustee Wilson,
Yes.
Trustee Wazinski,
Yes.
Supervisor Jackson,
Yes.
Clerk Guthrie,
Yes.
Treasurer DeShane.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
Thank you. And item 12D is the Pension Stabilization Fund, which we have talked about a lot. I will note for anyone else who's trying to keep up with us that we have an amended memo here tonight. Mr. Walsh, would you prepare us, please?
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. Yes, I want to be really clear that this potentially setting up this fund tonight is not meaning that we're not making our payments. In fact, in 2023, we are exceeding our ARC actually required contribution by $2 million. We're exceeding our payment to our pension system. Our pension fund has grown from 54 to 72% over the last 10 years. So we're trending extremely well with our pension debt. What this does is that it's worth, and I'm sorry to take a couple minutes, but I think it's worth noting again, this is really important for the community. In fact, our residents went to the polls in 2017 with this issue. The MERS, the retirement system, sets a rate of return that we're expected, and that determines your ARC, your payment. And they determine used to be 8, but now it's down to a 7.35 rate of return. And so therefore, that 7.35 rate of return, you're expected to pay X. This is how much you expected to pay. Well, in Meridian Township, we say we don't believe that we're going to earn 7.35%. We use 5%. So when you use a 5% number, your required contribution payment goes up because your earnings aren't nearly as great as you would think it would be with a 7. If we're in 7.35, we'd have more money, payment would go down. So what we're really doing is we're really being fiscally responsible. More so than most any communities in Michigan who are still paying on that or trying to pay on that 7.35 and going backwards. We've adopted the 5%. That's what the board has done, very wisely, I might add. And it's netted great results for this community. And I applaud you all for that, and the former board members who were involved in all of that. So tonight what we're doing is presenting to you to hopefully create a pension stabilization fund that we would set aside. Because our revenues have grown, we'd like to set aside $2 million into a pension stabilization fund, and that $2 million would be used not next year, potentially maybe not even in 2025 or 2024. It's set aside that in future years, if this community is unable to make that payment, required contribution, ARC, let's say in 2025, we're a couple $100,000 short of being able to do that. That's what this pension stabilization fund, it's to help augment where we are in future years to continue to pay off our pension at 5% rate of return rather than this rosy 7.35 that we get from MERS. This process that we've set up, our regimen, has worked extremely well for us, and we want to continue to be able to do it. And that's why I believe we should earmark these funds for future years. So that's the request before you tonight. I know we've had 3 or 4 discussions about it. This is maybe the final one. Thank you.
All right. Treasurer DeShane.
I move to approve the township manager's recommendation to create a pension stabilization fund on 1/1/2023 in the amount of $2 million. The funds are earmarked to support the township's efforts to meet our MERS pension annual required contribution, ARC, with a 5% estimated rate of return.
Support. Supported by trustee Wilson. Mr. DeShane.
I want to thank the manager for his comments on this, and he's right to allude to the voters. And we wouldn't be in this good position right now were it not for the police and fire millage that the voters approved in 2017. These 3 of us at this table were ones that voted to put that on the ballot. I think at that time we committed to putting an extra $1.5 million in per year, and we're actually putting an extra $2 million in, and we paid for our ladder truck, other equipment, and able to hire 2 additional firefighters and 2 additional police officers. Is that correct? Is that what we did initially with that millage approval?
Police officers 39 to 41 and fire 30 to 32. Okay. And now we actually expanded that to 34.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. I think we should think of this not just as a pension stabilization fund, but possibly as a pension early payoff fund as well. Because if we are able to keep our books solid as they have been, watch our expenses as we have been, be prudent with all the township expenses, we may be able to leave this alone indefinitely and even add to it in future years where our revenues have exceeded our expectations. I think when we passed this in 2017, at least I had the hope we would be higher than we are at 72%, and maybe many of us did, but the fact is there's a lot of things that go into it, including our current retirees, rate of return in the market. Now, this year's market didn't go up 7%, it actually went down 20%, okay? And so that, fortunately, they use a smoothing method. They take the past 5 years into account, so it's not like our fund's gonna take a 20% hit this year, but it's gonna take a few years to come out of that hole that we created this year with a very down market. So, the goal of paying this off in 10 years obviously will not be met, but we are making good progress for it. But I think we ought to think of this as money saved that will allow us in really tough times, but also enable us, as we're hoping to do at the fire station, to pay it off early and get ahead of this very big debt that was really suffocating the township expenses just a few years ago. So those are my comments. Thank you. Oh, I do have a question for the board. On this fund and the earlier capital projects fund, in the treasurer's office, when we collect taxes for a municipality and we hold on to it for a long time, it earns interest. We pass that interest on to whoever is receiving that millage. Is the intent of the board that we're going to have the interest follow this fund as well, or have the interest rolled back into the general fund? my recommendation would be that we leave it with the fund itself. It would be an encouragement for us to keep the fund in place and see the value of the fund and give us more opportunities for payoffs for this or capital expenses for the other, since this is money being set aside just for that. So.
What members do you have comments?
Is this a management decision or is this a board decision?
To me, the reason I'm bringing it up here is I do think it's a board decision, is do we want to, the money's going to be there in either way. I guess this question is, how do you want to track it, in general interest revenue or specific to the fund? Again, my thoughts were if we track it by the fund, we're going to be more encouraged to continue to fund it and see that not only is some money there in terms of for capital projects and for difficult times, but it's actually growing there. In our current market, we will get between 3 and 4% on that money.
Mr. Walsh, do you have a comment?
I think it's a great question. I think I would like to get some input from our finance director at the right time and have that discussion, and then maybe report back to you with Treasurer DeShane and the finance director and have a good plan for that.
Okay. So we're still discussing the motion before us as written without that addendum.
Yeah, mine is more of a general question, does not have to be answered tonight. It's just a question the board can address at a future date.
Thank you. It's probably a rather important question as well. Other comments? We have a motion. Oh, I'm sorry.
I would just add
Trustee Wilson.
Seconding, thank you, Madam Supervisor. I would just add that this is sound financial management to allocate these funds and have that rainy day ability, because we simply don't know what's going to happen with the economy. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that coming from an auditor.
I'm listening to you.
All right, the motion before us is to approve the township manager's recommendation to create a pension stabilization fund on 1/1/23 in the amount of $2 million. And the motion has been appropriately moved and seconded. Mr. Lemaster, could we have a roll call vote?
Trustee Sundlin,
Yes.
Trustee Wilson,
Yes.
Trustee Wazinski,
Yes.
Supervisor Jackson,
Yes.
Clerk Guthrie,
Yes.
Treasurer DeShane,
Yes.
Trustee Hendrickson.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
If I may,
Mr. Wall?
I want to thank the board and the team and everyone involved. There's a lot of hours that went into putting this all together and the board's input and the meetings that we all had. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Item 12E on our agenda, federal policies and procedures. The discussion will be led by Finance Director Amanda Garber.
Thank you. Just going off of last week's discussion, the federal government has its own set of kind of guidelines along with the state and local governments. Their guidelines are referred to as uniform guidance, and the uniform guidance requires that all entities that accept federal funding must have a minimum written policies and procedures on how our internal controls work regarding that funding. The policy manual in front of you has some additions from last week based on board comments. I reached out to the auditors and they suggested adding 3 additional sections, one for period of performance, one for procurement, suspension, and debarment, and then a section on reporting. And then there were a couple of small details they wanted to add to some other sections. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right. Trustee Wilson.
Move to approve the Meridian Township Federal Policies and Procedures Manual.
Support. Supported by Trustee Wazinski. Trustee Wilson.
As a former auditor, I love policies and procedures, especially when they're written down. So this is an excellent step to take. I hope we do this with other policies that we follow. I thought this was well drafted. I think you have the right sections in it, and thank you very much. I know it's a lot of work.
Thank you.
Trustee Wazinski.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. I would agree, I'm not an auditor, but I work for state government as well. So we are very careful about our policies and procedures, and it's been very effective in the past. So I thank you for all the work that went into this, and I appreciate it.
Other board members? Questions, comments? So, Ms. Garber, the additions and corrections have been made. And is this a final
Yes.
product at this point? Okay. So the motion is to approve the Meridian Township Federal Policies and Procedures Manual. I don't think we need a roll call vote. All in favor of the motion to approve the manual, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. The chair votes yes. And we thank you, Ms. Garber, for your work and your efforts.
Thank you.
Oh, I see you're still standing there because item 12F is the fourth quarter budget amendments.
Thank you.
Finance Director Garber.
Thanks. Before you are the fourth quarter budget amendments. So for the fourth quarter, we are projecting an addition back to fund balance of around $1.3 million. For a total projected fund balance at the end of 2022 of around $14 million. Some of the larger budget amendments that are included are for ambulance fee revenue, interest revenue, legal fees, election temporary salaries, police overtime, the Meridian Redevelopment Fund, which has been budgeted into '23. We're just removing it from '22. We received 2 years of road revenue from the County Road Commission instead of just the one. The elimination of the Towner Road Park play structure because we didn't receive the grant. Brownfield tax capture revenues, and then motor pool vehicles were a little bit higher than expected due to inflation and supply chain issues. Happy to answer any questions on those.
Trustee Hendrickson.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. I move to approve the fourth quarter 2022 budget amendments with an increase in budgeted fund balance for the general fund in the amount of $1,313,215, which projects an addition to fund balance of $847,812. Based on 2021 results, the projected fund balance at December 31, 2022 will be $14,013,328.
Support. Supported by Trustee Wilson. Mr. Hendrickson.
Thank you. So this is, again, very well put together. Thank you for that. It's always a welcome sight to see when things end up better than we anticipated from a financial perspective. Obviously, we have the Meridian Redevelopment Fund, which we know is coming next year instead of this year. However, we had essentially said that we must, retain 25% of our expenditures in fund balance, and now we're well over 50%. And I think that again speaks to the good financial management that Director Garber and Manager Walsh and his team have built strong underpinnings for. And so it is, I am very happy to approve these amendments and enter the new year in an even stronger financial place than we were last year.
Trustee Wilson.
I also noted, in addition to your comments, higher than anticipated expenditures for many items. So we are really looking at a trend, and I think we have to be very judicious as we go into this next fiscal year as to anticipating some of those increased costs that will be coming down the line.
Thank you. Mr. DeShane.
The most salient thing to me is the $250,000 in additional ambulance fee collections. And the manager gave us heads up about this, but I wonder if Chief Hamill could speak to that for a minute. Is this something you expect in future years? Is it a one-time phenomenon, or is it really tied to the topic you brought up before, which is the demise of many private ambulance companies?
Thank you. I think it's a combination of all. We're up about 400 calls this year. I believe Medicare is they've increased their rates, so we've been able to get more return for what we've done. So it's just, as the trend and run numbers go up, our numbers are going to go up. We've also done a better job of reporting with our billing agency. When Christine Cassidy came on, we revamped how we did our run reports and pushing them to them. And instead of doing them monthly, we're doing them daily now. So we're getting ahead of the game in regards to the numbers coming back quicker.
But I'm not seeing an increase in overtime, so you'll be able to do it within your normal scheduled hours as well, these additional 400 runs?
Oh, yeah. So, one of the things that helped us with our overtime this year, honestly, is the addition of the 2 people. I think we're just under our overtime budget right now. Maybe we're going to go over this pay period. I'm not sure. It's going to be close to get through the end of the year, but we've done really well with that. And we had a stretch this summer, late August, where we had 5 long-term injuries at one time, and we were still able to keep the boots on the ground and limit our overtime. So it's been actually a good year for that.
This is great news. Thank you for bringing this to us.
Other comments, questions? We have, where am I?
We have a motion.
We have a motion for fourth quarter budget amendments. We will need a roll call vote to approve those amendments. Mr. Lemaster?
Trustee Wilson,
Yes.
Trustee Wazinski,
Yes.
Supervisor Jackson,
Yes.
Clerk Guthrie,
Yes.
Treasurer DeShane,
Yes.
Trustee Hendrickson,
Yes.
Trustee Sundlin.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
Thank you. And thank you, Director Garber. Item 12G is a resolution to call the Central Fire Station unlimited tax general obligation bonds. Mr. Opsimer?
Yes, good evening, board members and Supervisor Jackson. So back in 2013, when we first issued the bonds for the construction of the Central Fire Station, our estimation was that we would be able to pay down the bonds by 2028. Due to growth in our tax base, which is accelerated revenue collections, we now anticipate paying it down by 2025. The revenue is kind of forecasted there in the middle of page 1 of the cover memo. In consultation with our bond counsel and our bond agent, we've been advised that we should not be retaining a fund balance above 150% of our annual payment. And therefore, we do wish for the board to approve the resolution tonight so that we can make payments on the principal and the prorated interest for the remaining years or the final years of the bond maturity. So this would pay down all of 2028 and 2027 in full, and we would begin to pay down 2026. And then possibly next year, depending on how revenue finalizes, we will pay down a portion or all of 2026, and then we will look to pay off the bonds in 2025 in their entirety. So the resolution tonight authorizes the payment. These are funds that are sitting in our account due to revenue growth from the increase in our tax base. Happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you. We need a motion. Trustee Wilson.
Move to adopt the resolution authorizing partial redemption of unlimited tax general obligation bonds, Series 2013.
Support.
supported by Trustee Hendrickson. Trustee Wilson.
This only makes sense that in concurrence with bond counsel, that you are doing exactly what you're supposed to do with essentially the surplus funds to pay down that balance. So it makes sense to, I think, to all of us. Thank you for explaining a complex issue.
Trustee Hendrickson.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. I concur. I think this is again, more excellent news to come to us toward the end of the year here. And, you know, I equate this in personal finance to the debt snowball, right? Where you pay off your debts and then put it back into other things. And I think this is terrific that we have been able to get ahead because of the sound financial position that our tax base has put us in. And we can get this paid off a few years early.
Mr. Duchesne?
Thank you. I think you answered this question because you didn't mention a penalty, but I'm assuming there is no prepayment penalty with this bond issuance.
No penalty whatsoever.
Other questions, comments? The motion is to adopt the resolution authorizing partial redemption of unlimited tax general obligation bond series 2013. Mr. Lemaster, we need a roll call vote.
Trustee Wazinski,
Yes.
Supervisor Jackson,
Yes.
Clerk Guthrie,
Yes.
Treasurer Deshane,
Yes.
Trustee Hendrickson,
Yes.
Trustee Sudlin,
Yes.
Trustee Wilson.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
Thank you, Mr. Officer. Move now to our board discussion items. The first is 1673 Hazlet Road Brownfield Plan Amendment. Mr. Schmidt.
Excuse me. I'd be happy to answer any questions. I briefly overviewed this at the public hearing. The applicant is here this evening to speak to the specifics if there are any questions. But again, functionally what this does, it takes out the grocery store from demolition from the previously approved plans. It updates all of the calculations to what we now know to be the rough estimate of value of $33 million. And the long and and it adds the 5% interest in. The long and the short of this is it's a 4-year payback now instead of a 15-year payback. So it's a 7-year total plan because the plan was technically approved in 2020. So you're allowed under the act 5 years of grace before you start collecting. They will obviously start collecting a partial year next year, partial year the following year, and then 2 years of full capture. And actually the 4th year is not even a full year of capture. So this will get back on the tax rolls much quicker than we previously anticipated.
Right. Questions? Comments? Mr. Duchesne?
I think Trustee Wazinski had her hand up first.
Oh, I see. Trustee Wazinski.
Thank you, Treasurer and Supervisor. I am not fully proficient in brownfields. So taking that portion out, will we need another brownfield plan for the remainder of the property?
So we previously approved that. That was the Hazlet Village Square plan that was approved in October, if I remember correctly. This was unique in that it covered a portion of property that was not originally in the plan, but you can do that. It's an adjacent property under the act. You're allowed to do an adjacent property if it's adjacent to a facility. This property is considered a facility under the act.
Go ahead.
So would that mean that the contamination has migrated to the adjacent property?
No, they are separate issues. It's just the act allows for adjacent properties to be included. So in this case, we were trying to kickstart that by demoing the main building on the site.
Understood. Thank you.
Mr. Duchesne.
Trustee Wazinski anticipated my question. I guess why was this ever part of the Pine Village if it didn't belong to them to begin with? You answered the question because it was an adjacent property and they were eligible to do it.
Well, originally it is, remember, it was one ownership originally. So it was owned by the development group that has owned it for some time. And so that was an option available to us to sort of kickstart the overall project by demoing additional property that was clearly not going to be used in the long run. This was a mechanism for us to fund that demolition ultimately.
And it would have been great if we could have been able to take that down. We anticipating this sometime in 2023 to the old grocery store in Plaza.
Yes. we do anticipate it'll be likely early '23.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments? So at this point, Mr. Schmidt, we expect this to come back for a final board vote at our next meeting?
Yes, ma'am.
Seeing no further comments, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, I see you're not moving because 13B is also a part of your portfolio. Ordinance 2022-15, daycare regulation update. Mr. Schmidt.
It's a very simple change to our ordinance. The state passed Public Act 106 of 2022 this year. Functionally, that act modified a number of regulations with respect to childcare facilities of all types. It came out of the COVID pandemic and the need for additional flexibility with childcare providers. So what this does is this brings our ordinance in compliance with that act. So a family childcare home, which we have, no municipality in Michigan has any regulatory control over anyway, the state preempts us on that, is allowed to have currently 6, under this new act is allowed to have 7 children. A group childcare home, which we do regulate as a special use permit locally, can have from 7 to 14 instead of from 6 to 12.
12 to 14, isn't it?
The total goes to 14 from 12 previously, yes. That is the only change that this ordinance makes to bring us into compliance with state law.
Okay. Questions, comments? Mr. DeShane.
How many, do we have a number of how many family daycare centers we have licensed in the township and how many group?
I'm happy to follow up with that.
Just curious, this makes sense to expand this. Childcare is a really tough thing for many parents to find good quality local childcare. Anything we can do to facilitate the growth of these quality childcare, we should do.
Trustee Wilson.
This brings us into compliance with state law, so to me, we need to do it.
Mr. Schmidt, we have no authority to enforce. Is that correct?
So there's 2 categories. Under the family child care home, we are preempted by state law. We're just bringing ourselves into compliance. Under the group child care home, technically, we could be sticklers to our SUP requirements and say you cannot exceed 12 because that's what you were approved under. But from a practical perspective, one of the items that doesn't show up in our ordinance but shows up in Public Act 106 is that you don't get this by right. You have to essentially have a clean bill of health for, I believe, 3 years in a row before you're able to jump up to this higher level.
I see.
So by not making this change, functionally, you're penalizing the good actors.
Okay. Other questions, comments? Trustee Wazinski.
I just want to concur with, I think, Trustee Wilson. I have multiple staffers that are of age for childbearing, and it is really difficult to find good childcare right now, and they're struggling. So I'm glad that the state government did this, and of course, it's required, so we have to as well.
Okay. Trustee Hendrickson.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. I'm of 2 minds on this. Obviously, we need to be in compliance with state law, and so we will be. And when this comes up, should it come up next meeting or whenever for approval, I'll be supportive of it. I don't love what the state did by changing the adult to child ratio in this. I don't believe that more children to the same number of adults is necessarily a good thing. And I don't necessarily believe that that a reaction to the COVID pandemic should be to put more kids in the same space together. However, obviously I am sympathetic. I have 2 small ones of my own to the desperate need for childcare here and everywhere. And in addition, you know, the laws of supply and demand will tell you that by creating more opportunities for licensed childcare in the area, We'll also be constraining some of the overpriced nature of daycare, which I also can appreciate. So, I mean, obviously, we have to be in compliance with state law, and so we shall. Is this necessarily the best way for the state to have done that? I don't know, but that's not for me to disagree with in this particular moment. I did feel that it needed to be said.
Okay, thank you. We will see this at our next meeting.
We will, and just briefly to answer the treasurer's question, given that all the data in the world's at my fingertips, there are 12 family child care homes within the township, and there are 6 group child care homes within the township.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Quick answer.
Thank you.
Okay, if there are no further comments on that subject, we come to item 14 on our agenda, which is public comment. Seeing no public, we will move to item 15, other matters and board member comments. Treasurer DeShane first.
Just to say that this Saturday is the Santa's First Responder Christmas Party, which a former police officer, Gaylord Mankowski, created over 30 years ago. And currently, one of our township leadership, Rick Grillo, is the co-director of this year. And over 300 families will receive a very nice Christmas this year because of this party. And the Meridian Police Department created this and have kept it going for 3 decades now. And another great thing that our police department does. And this year, the Rotary Club, which a couple of us board members are part of, contributed $3,000 to us. So I'm glad that we were able to help buy some gifts for kids.
Just the Clerk Guthrie.
Just real quick comment that the item 12B and 12D, the updated versions will be in the packet online.
Okay. Trustee Hendrickson.
Oh, mine's more just of a comment than anything else, which is to wish everyone here and at home happy holidays and Merry Christmas, and hope that you get some well-deserved rest with your family and friends over the next few weeks.
Thank you. Others? Then we stand adjourned. Thank you all very much. Thank you.